Now, our new video after that one, horizontal versus vertical design, MMO opinion, right? I like his MMO content. I never watched this video before, so I just kind of went. I haven't watched his videos in a long while, so I just kind of went through his new stuff and chosen the video to watch. But I don't expect good old Joshi to actually react to my reaction of his reaction. But he has been growing. He has been known to do this thing where he picks a reaction video to his video, and he reacts to the reaction video of his video, and he proceeds to make fun of the whole reaction thing, where he reacts to a reaction of a reaction. I think, no, reacts to the reaction of the video. And it's kind of having fun. I think Asmongold reversed the concept and reacted to his reaction of his reaction to the video. That happened before. But yes, he always goes on the tangents. Josh always goes on completely unrelated tangents when he's reacting to a reaction of his video, and he does that sometimes to people on his Twitch channel. Go follow him, by the way, Josh Strife Hayes. He's amazing. Josh Strife Hayes. See, that's how you spell it. Watch him, please. He's poggers. And we're watching his horizontal versus vertical design, MMO opinion. There are things I don't really agree with him when it comes to videos and MMO stuff, but in most things I think I do agree with him.
RPG games have a ton of content, from epic quests where you help
Yes,
others to
yes.
life skills where you can relax and forge your own little existence, dungeons and raids rewarding powerful weapons and armor, or hidden areas where the only reward is the warm, fuzzy feeling you get for finding a secret. The content you personally enjoy will help guide the game you play. There's no perfect design, but the idea of progression on a journey is universal across most RPG games. You adventure, you experience, and you grow.
Yeah, ultimately this is the basic system. This is the base of all RPGs, be it massive multiplayer or just RPGs, so single player. You go through a set amount of quests, set amount of encounters. Be it social or combat. You get experience, you level up, you get skills, progression. That's always going to be a thing in most RPGs. You start level 1, you start like a wee fucking small guy that has nearly no skills. Same. I can't call myself largely an MMO person because I haven't really gotten into like any big MMOs in the last 10 years. But I do have some opinions about MMOs and how they can develop because they largely they are just a little bit of they are ultimately a different version of an RPG. Like base systems in an MMO is always very RPG like, at least on the fundamental level. So when I play RPGs, I effectively can argue some of it when it comes to MMOs. There are additional systems, there are additional progression, there are additional situations like raids, like a PvP, stuff like this. But ultimately, fundamentally, combat quests, story, fighting systems, progression, all that can be effectively tied back to its RPG origins. And even further, I can say all of it can be even further tied back to its tabletop origins. Because what do you do in D&D? You go through a set of encounters. You have a battle system. You have abilities that you learn with each level up, be it magic or new abilities, a new way to slash someone to death, new weapons, new stuff like this. Progression. It's a role-playing game using imagination that uses set-in-stone progression. That's how it is. Or not. Or in case of Pathfinder, it's an RPG that gives you many paths to progressions, because there is not like exactly one way to play it. Unlike like Barbarian, you're gonna be a big tanky person in 5e. or fighter, you're gonna be a big slashy person in 5e. When it comes to Pathfinder, you can be an arcane fighter just as easily. You can be an arcane fighter slinging pies for a living just as much as you can be a normal bloke with a sword.
And within that progression, there are two primary schools of design: vertical progression and horizontal progression. So let's discuss what they are, the strengths and weaknesses of both, and the type of player that each appeal to. Quick note, this video is sponsored by Guild Wars 2, which is super convenient for me because I was going to use them as an example anyway. Welcome.
Wonderful. Actually, I did want to actually get into Guild Wars 2. Third person was a person with actually just a high caliber rifle that shoots pies. Yes. Yes. That shoots pies. That's important.
Josh Strife Hayes.
Poisoned pies. Poisoned pies that get cause nuclear explosions.
I've played a lot of MMORPGs, and while each is magically different in its own unique way, they all broadly appeal to one of two demographics: people who like vertical progression and people who like horizontal progression.
Poison rifle. Nuclear poison rifle.
But what do these terms mean? Imagine a vertical line with increasing numbers marked on it. Let's say from 1 to 10. This line represents power, with 1 being weak and 10 being strong. We can take anything from the game, any weapon or piece of armor or equipment, and place it somewhere on this scale. A bronze dagger in RuneScape may be a 1, an abyssal whip may be a 7. Ultimately, everything can be ranked. Vertical progression is the design of things at the top being the most desirable and things lower down simply being stepping stones used to reach the things at the top. You will go through the numbers from lower to higher, ultimately wanting to get to and remain at the highest number.
True.
If an MMORPG is a vertical progression game, this table ends up being taller than it is wide. The aim is to climb and stay there. This appeals to people who want the best stuff. It appeals to people who value power over the experience. Horizontal progression is slightly different. It's not that horizontal games don't have the vertical scale, it's that they spread wider than they go tall. You may have multiple items of the same general strength, but they're achieved in different ways.
I think Final Fantasy XIV can be attributed to more horizontal progression, because ultimately what you get like when you play certain certain class. I researched it. You play certain class, right? You got same damage ability, same damage level of weapons, but each class has their own weapons, their own. There's also the situation of glamours and various skins and all that stuff that you can earn in games. So, despite their numbers, even like armor, most of the armor when you glamour it, it stays the same. It's the same stats ultimately, but you change it how it looks. You change how you got it, like ultimate raids where you get like big shiny, light weapons. It's a prestige mark more than anything.
They may be situational instead of objectively better. The scope of experience in the game is usually broader, and older content remains relevant a lot longer at the expense of the power cap being generally lower. So let's look at some examples and discuss the strengths and weaknesses of both designs, and then maybe you'll discover which design you are most attracted to. I'm going to cover 7 main aspects of the design debate. 1. Chasing power versus the
enjoying the
process
brightness.
itself. 2. The viability of older content.
I think the second point is effectively proving to me personally that Final Fantasy XIV is very much a vertical progression. It's it's horizontal progression. It's not vertical, but it's very much skewed towards horizontal, because the content to this day is still viable. I think in that game, it's still viable to this day. The content from Realm Reborn. So.
3. Balancing the power standards. 4. Power creep versus feature creep. 5. Stat or feature squishing. 6. The ability to take a break and then return to the game. And 7. The personal drive of social power or personal enjoyment. But before we analyse these 7 points, a big thank you to Guild Wars 2 for agreeing to sponsor this video. I've played Guild Wars 2 since it launched all the way back in 2012, and it's been one of the few MMOs I've installed on every PC I've had since then.
Yeah. I could see that. I do think Destiny 2 has a lot of progression stuff, but all of it is largely cosmetic and they have their own stats. And beyond as far as I can understand, beyond a certain light level, it doesn't really require you to like grind out and shit. You can play it the same. You just need to like different weapons for different situations. At least as far as I heard.
then, and finally, after like 5 years of coming soon, it's actually released on Steam. They've been
Wonderful.
released to very positive reviews. The latest expansion, End of Dragons, brings a ton of new content without invalidating the previous expansions, Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire, but you don't need to buy anything to try the game. There is a massive free trial. The base game is free with no time limit, and if you do like it, it is a one-time purchase with no monthly sub. Once you own Guild Wars 2, you own it. And given the amount of hours
Fair
I've
enough.
got out of this game, Guild Wars 2 is probably the best value money I've ever spent on a video game.
Yeah. Single purchase MMO games, I think, are one of the biggest value you can ever gain because ultimately, no matter how much you enjoy or not enjoy the game, you're going to play it for days, weeks, months, and you're going to return back again because it's a game that is all MMOs are designed to be forever games. They ultimately design to attract you back. They're designed to make sure you return at least sometimes, right? New content, new raids, new dungeons, PvP, stuff like this. They just want you to return back leveling up alt accounts or leveling up old classes in case of Final Fantasy 14 because you don't need alts there. Leveling up stuff, other stuff, engaging with your friend community, greeting your guild and saying hello to them. Yeah, there is a lot of
To
ways.
celebrate
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of ways you can effectively do this kind of thing.
the Steam launch, there's a link in the description. You can sign up, get a code, and grab the game on Steam. And then, if you want, you can redeem the code for an experience boost pack, some karma boosting, and a 10-slot bag with a mini pet. This all saves you around $10, and it's free, so there's no reason not to. There's a new
Yeah,
guide
yeah,
on the
yeah.
website, although the in-game tutorial is actually really good. There's great build variety in the classes, and the mount system is so good it is now the standard by which other games are to be judged.
I do like the style of Guild Wars 2. Well, I did try it at some point many years ago. I wasn't really into MMOs, nor really I was into really gaming as much as I am right now. And I do think that the classes are very interesting in themselves. So,
Now, regular viewers
like, look at this aesthetic. I think this the aesthetic of Guild Wars 2 is very interesting. It stands out in some ways. Then it's to kill Technomancer. Yeah. If I'm going to play something, which I'm not exactly sure what yet, I'm going to be trying either Engineer or Necromancer. That's gonna be a
will
trade.
know that I don't accept sponsorships unless I can personally vouch for the product. And honestly, Guild Wars 2 is just a really good MMORPG game with a great deal of content that every player should at least try.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
in the
I think a lot of why the appeal of of Guild Wars 2 and Final Fantasy 14, what the big appeal of it comes from for new players is the fact that the trial run isn't like the debate you usually expect from a trial, from quote unquote trial run, when you just pass the tutorial and say, to play further, please pay money. Actually are smart about it. They expect you to play a little bit, like expect you to play as much as you want to within this limited edition of the game. And in case of Final Fantasy 14, it's like a whole 60 levels. It's first expansion, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's up to have it's including Realm Reborn and Heaven's Word. If I'm not mistaken, level 60 when you play. No, it's yeah. Level 60 is Heaven's Word because level 50 is the end of the. Level 50 is the absolute end of the Realm Reborn. Then after that, all 50 levels go for level. All there's a bunch of quests level 50 story quests that are basically you know that are post patch contacts, post main game patch contents. Then there's Then there's expansion Heaven's Word, which goes from level 50 to level 60. Then after that is what's it called? Don't remember how it's called. That's expansion from 60 to 70, then expansion from 70 to 80, and then the latest one, Endwalker, is the expansion from 80 to 90.
The deal even more. One lucky user who uses this code will get the $100 pack on Steam, including all the Guild Wars 2 content, absolutely free. Check the video description for more details. Right, back to vertical versus horizontal design. Let's start with the basics. The most simple appeal of vertical design is the chasing of power. The best item, the best armor, the best spell, the number.
It's the power fantasy, effectively. A lot of the, I think, as much as I understand, a lot of the end game content in World of Warcraft was really developed around this kind of mentality, vertical mentality. You gotta get the best item. You gotta get the best. You gotta get the best stats. You gotta min max this for your class, so you are viable in the raids. It's not exactly for everyone, because casual players, as far as I'm aware, casual players don't really play this kind of min-maxing game. They just do their own thing in the background. It's the same thing for World of Warcraft comes from PvP. Also, you kind of need the best gear, the best thing in the world, the best thing you can probably get for this. Outside of the skill, like even outside of the skill, and you need to get the best items you possibly can from the whole scaling situation. So that is a horizontal. That is a vertical.
Numbers are simply higher. You can compare and contrast every item in the game and see at a glance, objectively, which is a better choice.
Yes,
a sword doing 1 damage compared to a sword doing 10 damage. Higher number, better. This can lead to game design where a single choice is objectively correct for the majority of gaming situations, and that choice has no variations within itself. If there is a best weapon in the game, everyone wants to get it and use it. That is the power you chase. For vertical players, the actual experience of getting the power comes second to having the power itself.
I think there's a lot of pros to this kind of scenario, because you don't really need to build multiple branching paths, multiple quest lines, multiple situations in which you can get this item and you can use this item. And the development becomes much more streamlined, because there's one spear of fuckery that you need to get to like win all the competition. You need to do this spear. If you play this class, you need this spear and no other spear. You need this spear. You need this spear, you need this armor set, and you need this boots. And a bandana and like a weird ass eye patch. I don't know. Just off the top of my head. That's how you go. And that is how you get where you need to go. This is how you proceed further. You get the best item, you win. You don't get the best item, good luck.
Reward over the process. In horizontal progression, it's less about the power and more about variation and experience. The process is now more important than the reward, because the reward isn't specifically any more powerful than what you already have.
Yeah. Honestly, I talked about with the person who played Final Fantasy XIV. And for example, a raid, they did a dungeon, story dungeon, right? And they needed to like grab an item for a specific thing, like level 50 item. They get a level 50 gun for their gunslinger or whatever the hell. And that level 50 gunslinger weapon was like 2 damage above it. It doesn't really have any specific stats. Didn't really have any specific uber power thing. It just did 2 more damage. It's okay. It doesn't change much. It doesn't change the game much. The main thing you look forward to in this situation isn't the process of getting it. Isn't the fact that you got the gun. You don't care about the gun. Okay, it's cool. 2 more damage. That's fine. Just equip it. Forget about it. That's the main thing is the spectacle. The spectacle of this dungeon that you got the gun in, the spectacle of the boss fight, the spectacle of the story beats revolving around the in-game, the story dungeons, everything tying together, the backgrounds, the in-party coordination, all of it is effectively the same. A friend of mine, someone who I know, who did like for Final Fantasy 14 raids too, she said effectively the same about the raids. The main feature of the raids is the sheer utter scenery of them. You don't really fight primals in order to thinking about what kind of item you'll get by the end of fighting the primal. You fight primal to fight primal because it's really fun, and in case of extreme trials, it's also hard as balls. But yes, it's not impossible to do either. It's just very hard. But you don't play those trials in order to get like rewards, as far as I'm aware. Like it's still prestige that you did them, and still you get them a cool item that makes you look cool to other people because you got the item. But it's not like super stat boost. You don't need this item. In fact, the extreme trials are very optional. You don't need to do them to continue the game. It's not really needed. PvP has its own shtick. It's gotten better in the last few years, from what I can understand. Before it was kind of shallow and uninteresting, but it gotten better because it has its own like progression system, its own items, its own like stuff, and you get like your own little power system when you play this game on a PvP level, PvP encounters, and you have like everything has an in lore explanation, everything has a story, everything, which is fun. I think it's fun.
Imagine you have a weapon which does X amount of damage,
Yeah.
and there's another weapon in the game which also does X damage, but now looks different or is achieved in a more difficult way. A good example would be the ornamental kits in old school RuneScape or RuneScape 3. They
Yeah,
make
yeah.
the weapon look different visually, but they act identical mechanically. You won't gain any extra power from having the weapon itself, but you will have the experience of getting it.
And the prestige of actually owning it. Because when you have a specific looking item that you earn the specifically hard way, in a specific way that is known to the community, and you can boast in having this item, you will be obviously getting some sort of recognition for you completing the events. That's a prestige. That's a token of prestige. That's ultimately why a lot of people play MMOs, because they want to exist in a world with a lot of people who can approach you and say, "Wow, you passed this trial. You got this big flaming sword that only can be gotten from defeating this enemy for over 50 times after it spawns or something like that." Yeah, this is why a lot of people play the game. Cosmetics, mounts, everything that is can be obtainable in a harder manner and exists in a limited capacity brings a level of prestige within the community of the game. You don't even need to engage in social situations as much. You don't need to form friends there in an MMO game. I think you do. You just need it's one advantage over everything else in terms of game development and in terms of like community development is that in normal RPG, when you put on a cool helmet and you take a screenshot of that cool helmet and you spread it on the internet, that's cool helmet. Look at me, I'm so cool, right? You can't just approach other person in that game and say, "Oh, look at me, I'm so cool," and they go, "Oh, awesome, you passed this trial and this trial." Uh, yeah, you can't do that in a normal RPG. So people play MMOs because they have a big community, they have a bunch of people running around, they have big hub worlds, big hub cities, big scenery. They enjoy the immersion in this age. They enjoy various activities outside of that. There's whole crafting guilds out there that exist, crafting shells, link shells that exist in game just to craft cool shit and showcase it to other people and or sell it on the market and get money for it. There's whole role players out there whose entire existence within the game revolves around not doing the main quest and being the hero of the light, for example, or not doing the main quest and being the hero of Cyrodiil or whoever hero they are, and just playing the character. They just play the character. They just exist in the character. They engage with other people. They engage with the community. They go in events. They use their housing to be as immersive as possible. They don't care about power progression. Their entire existence revolves around immersive experiences within the game. I think MMOs should, in fact, support various, to a degree, support various ways of play. be it horizontal or vertical, because there's obviously going to be min maxers who are just interested in getting the best gear item. Oh fuck. Sorry, Bedwars Stormy. Please go to my Discord if you want to post a video. I have a Nightbot. It's a Discord thing. Discord. Bedwars Stormy. Moon plus no plus 2 plus no. If it's a video, if it's a comment, if it's a emote, I'm sorry. I don't even know how to regulate the thing yet. But if you want to provide me with a video, please go there. Yeah. Sorry if I'm rambling about this thing, but I think returning back to my point, I think all MMORPGs should support both ultimate mechanics of vertical and horizontal, because most people find fun to showcase their cool looking gear earned in specific trials, but there are other people who really like to just be the strongest ever, having the biggest shaft around, so to speak. Both of those can coexist. Because both of those and ultimately engage in the same content. They do the same things. They do the same sort of progression. Their reasons for doing so is vastly different, but they are ultimately doing the same thing.
The focus is on variations, not greater items.
See? Yeah.
How does this affect the game when you've got everything and new content has to be added? With vertical design focusing on the reward and horizontal focusing on the process, the risk for vertical comes in the form of, once a player has the power, why would they go through any process when they know it would reward a less powerful item? If your player base values being the most powerful and they are the most powerful, other content loses its appeal. This is a major problem with vertical design. It invalidates old content extremely quickly.
Yes. If you play MMORPG for just pure desire to have the biggest stake in the game, right? You won't really engage in the social community. You won't really engage in the raiding community. You won't engage in the communities at all. Your main primarily goal is to breeze through the game. You probably won't even pay attention to the story at hand. That's the thing. You just won't pay attention to it. There's a big chance you won't. You just want the biggest stick, and when you get the biggest stick, you're satisfied. You're satisfied. You want to use it. You use your biggest stick to play PvP. You kick some people's ass. You just finish. You do your thing, right? You do your thing. That's what you do. But ultimately, I think personally, more that long-term progression is more horizontal. It's possible to stretch your game time much more if you play just for the experiences, because you will still want to experience every single dungeon there. You still want to experience all the raids. You'll want to experience all the stuff that exists. You probably will want to play out all of the crafting stuff. You will probably want to play out all of the additional stuff and extreme dungeons. If I'm returning back to Final Fantasy XIV. Everything tied to like progression is not going to be as much important as the fact that you did it. You finished this hard dungeon. You finished this hard boss. You got the token of finishing this boss. You got some mount that comes with finishing this boss. You activated all the flying nodes in the area. You can fly now. You activated all the stuff like this. This is the I think horizontal ultimately is a design philosophy that appeals to completionists really well.
Dungeon drops a weapon or armor set, and then a new dungeon drops a better one. The old dungeon simply becomes a stepping stone to the higher one, but then forgotten about once the higher one is achieved. Vertical progression attracts players who want to climb up, and everything lower than where they are is seen as pointless.
Yes.
New content doesn't become more of the game, it sometimes becomes the only part of the game worth doing.
Yes.
Ironically, an expansion doesn't actually expand a game if it becomes the only part of the game worth
You play,
focusing
yeah, yeah. This is the fundamental difference between World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV. World of Warcraft, the only game most people play in the moment when they play the World of Warcraft, they are playing the new expansion. Always playing new expansion. They always will gonna be leveling up in the new expansion. They always will be leveling up in the finishing the raids in the new expansion. They will do all the things in new expansion, all the items in new expansion. Every previous expansion is just irrelevant. You can level up in the previous expansion, right? You can go through the leveling in one previous expansion, right? You can choose. We can choose, right? But ultimately, you get then drop kicked into the main storyline that is happening right now. You have no idea what's happening. You just now here. You're just here now in the final level in this section of the game, and you just need to go from there, and then you get drop kicked into the second. I do like ice cream. Thank you for the follow, Mr. King Awesome YouTube 123. Yes, I'm watching videos. I'm also rambling about MMO design. But yes, I'm the observer. I'm soon to be debuting VTuber that enjoys card games, RPGs, various games. I stream 4 or 5 days per week. You can request a video. Yes, you can. Just not here. Nightbot is going to bonk you. Go to my Discord if you want to request a video, and there is a specific channel for you to request videos over there. Please do. I'm going to go through them as I go along. Gonna give you a roll so you actually see the thing. Okay. Yeah, make sure you know. You can tell me the name of the video and I'll look it up. Just without without the link, just name of the video. I'm going to continue rambling about this one because I do kind of want to talk about the YouTube design here. But yeah, just drop the name of the video. It shouldn't consider it a link if you drop the video. Oh, nice. I'll let you later. Still, okay, it's under the name Wild Goat Minecraft Ice Cream. Oh, Wild Goat Minecraft Ice Cream. Okay. Oh. There's Minecraft ice cream. Okay, this one. Is it this one? Is it this one, right? Wild Goat. What does my Minecraft ice cream is? Okay, fair enough. I'm just gonna go to this one. Okay, gonna grab this one. What is this? Okay. Continuing to rambling on my where was I before? Where was I on the whole MMO thing? I'm pretty sure I was speaking about the vertical versus design. But yes. Ultimately, right. Remember, the distinction between World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy. No, it's fine. It's fine. The distinction between the World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy is that World of Warcraft, your life in the game, no matter where you jump in, you're most likely going to find the latest expansion to be the most relevant one. Their inherent design of the game and how they proceed to go about their design is vertical. It's not horizontal, it's vertical. They constantly take out features. They constantly take out things, progression systems, because they didn't work in the previous expansion. So they don't really want to keep it in the future. They add new systems, just get out of the new systems. Don't think they added a lot of new classes since like other than premium classes like Demon Hunter. They don't think they added too much classes, and this is how it progresses ultimately. always always new expansion, always current content. You don't really care about the previous expansions. You don't really care about the Wrath of the Lich King unless you play on the classic servers, which has only just now released Wrath of the Lich King because they're classic servers, and they exist on the premise of diving into the past and having you explore the old content from all over again, basically. Even there, I'm pretty sure the old content also becomes irrelevant as they go through it. Maybe I'm wrong among classic, whatever. I guess that's why a lot of people don't really get attached to the story as much because most people who started to play the game have no clue what is happening. The game has existed for over 15 years by this point. The story has been progressing for over 15 years, and even before that, it was progressing in Warcraft 3. So they just don't. Most people who play the game World of Warcraft, they have no clue what is happening. They have no clue why the story beats are the way they are. They haven't read the multitude of books they released outside of the game to corroborate the story. Most of them don't give a fuck. They just want to get the biggest stick in the game, kill the biggest boss to get even biggest stick. Meanwhile, Final Fantasy XIV revolves around the concept of the story. If they would not allow themselves to delete any of the old content, they must. Every person who plays Final Fantasy XIV starts when all people started, many, many, many years ago. In Realm Reborn, everyone starts in Realm Reborn. Nobody starts in anywhere else. Everyone starts in Realm Reborn, unless you buy yourself like path to the max level. You start in Realm Reborn, and you pass all the quests, and you do everything, and you end and you always get to the current expansion through the patch quest, through the job quests, through everything. You always end up on the last expansion. You start from the first, get on the last, and that's the progression because they rely on you knowing the story. They rely on you getting through the story. So they often make sure you don't really get extremely more powerful weapons on later levels. Sure, they're stronger. Sure, they're stronger. Sure, you're going to be having a better time wielding a level 50 weapon on level 50 instead of wielding a level 30 weapon on level 50. That's just how it is. It's not going to be any other way. But yeah, I think that's the fundamental difference, the design philosophy.
Now, horizontal design often links together older content with newer content.
Yes.
The focus isn't on outclassing, but supporting.
Yep.
This isn't to say the rewards for new content aren't more powerful. They can be, but they are never completely eclipsed by new things, or the time taken
Yes.
to advance on the vertical ladder is still great enough that old content is still worth doing.
Yep.
Consider a new expansion in World of Warcraft. When something new comes out, the older content and the older expansions are often outclassed in terms of power. The best items from
Literally what I just said.
10 years ago are superseded by average items from now. But for an excellent example of horizontal design in content, look at the Barrows armor in old school RuneScape. The Barrows minigame released in
RuneScape, yes.
2005, and the rewards from it remained relevant for years. Indeed, old school RuneScape itself released in 2013, and the Barrows minigame is still a vital part of a new player journey.
That is a good thing. But yeah, he didn't use Final Fantasy 14 because it's a similar thing. But like ultimate raids that were released, Crystal Tower were released way ago, a long time ago, are still being played to this day. You can still queue on them with people, and it'll be fine. So yeah.
Despite many similar rewards now existing, it's not been overshadowed.
Yeah.
When an MMORPG receives new high-level content,
Yep.
vertical MMOs often watch older content become irrelevant because the power level has risen, and
Yeah.
horizontal MMOs watch older content become another piece in a greater puzzle as the variation increases. But both of these can lead to issues. Point 3, power creep versus feature creep.
I feel like a lot of the World of Warcraft was in a unique position that not a lot of MMORPGs were, in which they suffered both from power creep and feature creep.
If your game is vertical, players want more power. If your game is horizontal, players want more choice. Adding power is simple. Increase a number, weapon do more damage, armor stop more damage. Even releasing a new class or race like Neverwinter did with the Metallic Dragonborn and just straight up giving them better passive buffs.
Yeah.
Adding more power patch by patch is super simple, but it leads to the inevitable endgame of power creep.
Yeah, power creep. Uh, I'm going to swerve completely in a different direction and say Yu-Gi-Oh. Yu-Gi-Oh as a game currently is unfortunately suffering from both power creep and feature creep. Initially, how it was. Initially, the game was all about normal summoning and ritual summoning and some occasional special summoning, right? It was called special summoning because it was special. You needed to do special things for the summoning to occur. That's why it's called special. And you have ritual cards, which utilize cards for special spell cards that when played will be summoning the ritual monsters. Often powerful, often ritual monsters are really cool, and they really solidify why you should summon them and not just drop a single monster on the field. Why you should wait for why you should sacrifice someone from your deck. Why you should wait for the spell to get into your hand. Why you should even place this kind of brick into your hand that only exists to summon something else. Because usually in Goat era, in all the olden days, most of the ritual monsters were very much appropriate. They were strong, they had strong effects, and they really changed the game whenever you were able to summon them. Then links then synchrons were introduced, which were different kind of beasts. Then links were introduced. Then pendulums. Then something. Then new special summons. Then even new special summons. Even more pendulums. The hand traps, hand cards. All of these things basically made a lot of the older mechanics, unless you play it in like specific way, obsolete. But also, a lot of the Yu-Gi-Oh cards that were released in recent years are so much stronger, much stronger than they were many years ago. And unfortunately, Yu-Gi-Oh, in a modern sense, lacks that sense of variety in a lot of ways because you want to play a single three archetype. You want to play three archetypes, unless you want to play specifically to bust those three archetypes, in which you play another single or two decks. But if you want to play competitively, if you want to do best, you play one of three decks. It depends. It depends on the current meta always, but it's always three or four decks that you play that are completely outclassing anything and everything that the opponent can throw at them. Even more so, some decks just prohibit the opponent from playing to begin with. They just make sure everything. They make sure whatever happens, the opponent cannot do a single thing, and they just kind of sit there and watch you go play solitaire for 5 minutes.
When everyone is godlike, no one is.
Yes, that's the thing. When everyone plays Sword Soul, it's boring. It's not variety. It's not interesting. It's not super cool. It's boring. It's boring. When everyone plays meta, when everyone tries to do the biggest thing in the hood, it's boring.
Power is only powerful when compared to something less so. And when everyone is hitting millions of damage, the number itself isn't considered large. That's just normal. A player who wants to be considered powerful must be compared against a player of lesser power. So by increasing the power cap every update, you're adding small but constant windows of gameplay where the players race to achieve the increase in power and enjoy being more powerful for a short time before inevitably everyone catches up. So you increase it again and you repeat this forever.
Yeah, you can't really maintain that. That's just unrealistic. Like logically speaking, that's just impossible to maintain. You cannot do that. That's that is not a mentality you can maintain for a long period of time. That's just not how it is.
Horizontal progression, however, may avoid that absurd degree of power creep,
Yep.
but it still faces the equally complex issue of feature creep. If a
Yeah.
new update in a horizontal game can't simply make a number bigger, it needs to change something mechanically. Adding
Yeah.
a new
Not necessarily. If the MMO games is existing on a premise of a story, right? They need to add new story. They need to add new dungeons that support the story. They need to add other dungeons. They don't really necessarily need to change too much mechanically. Balance patches, changes to the class exist. That's fine. Stuff like this, normal. That's normal. But I do not think they need to change too much mechanically from expansion to expansion.
new choice, a new situational effect, a new experience for the player. A weapon which has elemental damage or does more damage at nighttime, or armor which works better when you stand still. If you can't just make a number go up, you have to make the gameplay experience change. And while this is great in the short term, it can lead to a massive amount of intricate features being added which are overwhelming when a new player joins and has to understand all of them in one go.
True. I guess that's a problem. That's also a problem similar again to what I understand. There's a similar problem in Yu-Gi-Oh, in which it's very hard to get into, especially for a new player when you get into what is summoning, what is link summoning, why is there so much summoning, what is the special summoning, why is this summoning, what is synchro summoning, what is the pendulum summoning, why is all of the summoning exists, what are the hand traps, what are the cards, what are the traps, why traps, and what difference is there between traps and hand traps, what is continuous spells, why continuous spells different from normal spells, why normal spells are different from quick spells, what is the field spells? What is the field spell? How is it different from a normal spell? What are these levels things? Why is the synchron levels are different from normal monster levels? Why is this levels? Why is link levels are so different from normal monsters? You know, when you go into Yu-Gi-Oh, you get blasted with all of this shit that you don't understand. And you need to understand it in order to actually succeed in a game. And it's really it gets really annoying. I played the game for a while. I know all this. I started from the GOAT era up and learning about the game from all the features one by one. So I kind of understand how it works. I still don't understand pendulum summoning, mind you, but I do understand most other summonings, and I do understand how they function. Fusion summoning is also exists, which is also a thing. Again, completely different fusion summoning, synchro summoning, this summoning, link summoning, pendulum summoning, special summoning, some normal summoning. There's 7 ways to summon. There's 7 ways to summon. There's 7 specific ways that have specific cards to attach to them. Oh no, ritual monster. 8 ways to summon. There's 8 ways to summon a monster in the game, in a single game, Yu-Gi-Oh. 8 ways. You don't really need to understand all of them, right? You don't really, unless you play. You often will play either fusion specific deck, or ritual specific deck, or this specific deck, or whatever link specific decks. Link players, go fuck yourself. By the way, I do not like you. But yes, ultimately you don't need to understand it, but the game doesn't tell you that you don't need to understand it. Nobody tells you that you don't need to understand all of this. You just be blasted in the face with all the variations of it all. And most people, at least what I know of, most people will drop out of the game before they even build their own first deck, because they will think that all this is important for me to know and understand and have a knowledge on. And all of these cards, I need to have all of these cards, because how will I not be able to use any of the summonings? Like, this is, yeah. Tutorial and Master Duel sucks ass, because it doesn't explain much. It says how you do it. It says how you do it. Like, it shows you particular ways of doing it. Place card on the field. Ooga booga, summon thing. That's how it is. That's basically how it is. But it doesn't explain you anything. That's feature creep in its finest form. But also power creep. It also experiences power creep because all the cards that are previous cards that are stronger than previous cards, they're always releasing new stronger cards. They're always banning older cards. Then they drop in something extremely new and extremely overpowered again. It's a mess. It's a mess. Cards. Hey, Azure Nightmare. Welcome to the stream. But yes, cards. Sorry, my accent is very thick, unfortunately. So especially when I speak pretty fast, some words can be misunderstood a little bit. That's an unfortunate reality of being an English speaker that is not an English speaker. Though it depends on how people find my accent, if it's okay sounding or not. But yes, I ramble on about a little bit. But yes, new cards are released that are basically stronger than the older cards, and yeah, it's a mess. Yu-Gi-Oh experiences both of those, so I am well aware of both of these problems, of both feature creep and power creep. And it's yeah, it's unfortunately it's not an easy problem to solve ultimately. Neither of those are very easy with the problems to solve. I think World of Warcraft tries to solve the feature creep by cutting out older features, but it ultimately leads to the further increase of focus onto the vertical progress instead of horizontal, and it hurts its chances of ever establishing itself as something of a as a community as a game that focuses on story. And to my internal bafflement, they somehow still continue pushing the story, even though nobody really cares about the story because of how confusing, convoluted, and incredibly irrelevant the past story is. You can't even play the past story right now. You need to own books to understand the story. Why are they trying to be Final Fantasy 14 is beyond me. They can't be. They need to. If you push enough into vertical design, continue pushing into vertical design. But don't try to become horizontal. You won't be. Final Fantasy 14 never pretended to be a game about power levels. It is about the story, and they do everything about the story. And nobody tries to pretend that this is not about the story. Even like the progression of the classes ultimately is about the story, isn't it? You go through progression of the classes, you level up the classes, you get new weapons, just so you can actually go and play through the story of the class. Special quests, special characters you meet along the way. That's the experience.
Feature creep can sometimes even be more insidious because the enfranchised player base
Uh-huh.
doesn't realize how complex their game has become as they've adapted to each feature change slowly. It doesn't feel much more different because things were added one at a time. But then a new player joins and they're told about many systems added slowly over many years, and they're expected to understand how they all link together.
Yes. I just said that. Yu-Gi-Oh example. You are expected again. Just listen to this. Ways to summon monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh. You summoning cards. You can summon them normally. You can summon them. You can summon tribute summoning by sacrificing on already existing monsters onto the field. You can summon this big monster by tribute summoning. You can special summon monster, which has certain conditions that basically ignore the whole tribute summoning things and normal summoning things, which can only be summoned once per turn. Then you have this summoning, which required you to have a certain amount of monsters of the certain levels on the field that specific stars. Then you have link summoning, which required you to have a certain amount of monsters of that spot type. Then you have ritual summoning, that require you to have like require you to have like a special spell card in hand and being able to sacrifice something. Then you have pendulum summoning, which basically ignores everything about every special summoning thing as long as you have pendulum cards on the field. Then you have fusion summoning, which requires certain elements to summon onto the field, and a single card of polymerization or whatever serves as polymerization is in your archetype. Do you understand what I mean yet? it's just not viable. It's just not viable. I actually mistaken. There's 10 ways to summon things, and I didn't account for tribute summoning. I didn't account for normal summoning. I think no, I didn't account for tribute summoning. So it's 10. There's 10, 9 or 10 ways to summon. Did you understand anything of what I said before right now? I just spoke about summoning. What is spell cards, you ask me? What is the trap cards, you ask me? Why is hand traps different from spell cards, you ask me? I can explain to you, but when the entire features of a card game, takes you 3 hours of sitting down and explaining to a new player by a veteran player, if you need 3 hours to explain the game and all its features, maybe there's something wrong with the game. Maybe, just maybe. Just maybe. And I know a lot of people, I know new people who play Yu-Gi-Oh. They don't really think about it all that much. Like they don't really just stop and just kind of observe this because they didn't really see the game before it was like this. I saw the game was before it was like this. I saw what I think were simple, and that because they were simple, people had much more variety of ways to play. There were still broken builds. No, don't worry about it. Every meta has its broken stuff. Every person that have found ways to completely outplay the system and completely destroy the balance in their own special, unique way. Those people always exist, and those people will always be around. But there was many ways to play, and right now, when a new player enters Hearthstone, Shadowverse, right? You play Shadowverse. What do you want? What do you need to know, right? You need to know evolution. You need to know You need to know what bloodcraft is. You need to know what swordcraft is. All that stuff, which is explained in the story. You literally need to pass the tutorial and play at least once from the perspective of each unique characters to understand the basic shit of each of the classes, right? And you need evolve mechanic, which basically you have 3 points of evolution or 2 points of evolution. You use an evolution point onto a card, and it evolves into a more stronger version of its card. You can summon as much as you want, but you need to expend a special resource called gems for it, or energy points. The more the match progresses, the more energy points you have, the more cards you can summon. That's that. Don't need to do anything else. You have energy points. They fill up to 3. You have a card that has spends 3 energy to summon, and it does this. You summon this card using 3 energy, and it does this. Simple. But it also invites a lot of complexity because there's additional mechanics you can use to game the system and evolve outside of your points, or there are cards which allow you to evolve without using any points, which is how you game the system. But the system remains the same. They don't add new systems with each expansions. They just allow you to play around them. That's amazing. I like this. Yu-Gi-Oh just kind of I think Yu-Gi-Oh just kind of lost itself in the grind for the fact that each new anime has to have a new feature. Each anime has to have a new special gimmick. So each season, there's Vrains, it had Link summoning. There's something this summoning something fusion summonings. GX was fusions. Yeah, it's I mean it's good in the moment, but when you actually pull all this together, like when you actually pull every single thing together, you will find out this is a convoluted mess that doesn't really have anything to do with enjoyment, at least to the new player. Like I can understand that I don't need to know any of this. I don't need to know pendulum summons unless I play pendulum summons. Because pendulums is an entire deck that revolves around pendulums. It involves links. Obviously, you can throw whatever you want in the extra deck if you want to. But yeah, there's monarchs, which basically exists on the knowledge that you don't really have anything in your extra deck at all. So you play monarchs, you make sure nothing gets played from extra deck because half of your cards basically block the usage of extra deck. That's monarchs. You use tribute summoning and you play around tribute summoning to summon stronger monarchs. That's how you work. But no new player will know that. No new player will know that.
Negatives can actually combine, and you end up with an MMORPG adding updates or content which both increases the power level substantially enough to invalidate old content and add new complex systems which are overwhelming for new or returning players. These types of updates are often met with major
World of Warcraft, hello!
backlash from the player base and result in people leaving. For a great example, see the evolution of combat for RuneScape back in the day.
yeah.
On to point 4. Developers must know that power creep or feature creep exists, and they must realize the issue. So why do they do either one? Well, it's because the player base that game is aiming at actually values the advantage they can gain from being the player to exploit that change. Players who enjoy games with power creep often enjoy the power creep. It's a measurable way to be more powerful than someone else.
Yes. That's why it's an ultimate problem in like PvP only games or like PvP games, PvP focused MMOs. When the power creep exists, because who do people attack? Who do the strongest players always go after? Time and time again, most strongest players in a PvP focused MMO never go after other strongest players focused in a PvP focused game, because they always can go and bully the weak newbie and get everything from them and show them how big of a dick they have. That's always going to be. They enjoy the power creep. They enjoy to be overwhelmingly powerful. They enjoy going around and kicking the ass of people who can't do anything to them. It's the power fantasy. It's why all of these manhwas and all of these stupid imbecile stories about OP protagonists that getting all the chicks, getting all of those fans, because people just like that shit. They like to be not challenged. They don't like to be challenged. They don't like to do things that challenge them. Well, unless they do these things when in a situation where being challenged and overcoming the challenge grants them some incredible new stick to play around with and to beat other players into submission. If that's the case, that's the goal. If that's the case, they will bite their tongue and they will do it. But otherwise, they don't like to be challenged.
Is especially prevalent in PvP games or on PvP servers.
As I said just now.
Creating a power imbalance in your favor is literally part of the experience.
Yep.
You can have a better weapon or a better set of armor, and you can use that power to defeat someone else. The imbalance is by design.
Yep.
And new players will struggle to beat old players because the maths simply doesn't allow it.
Yep.
A vertical progression game encourages players to climb the ladder by letting them compete with players higher up on it and losing, or compete with players lower down and winning.
Yep.
That's the revenge. This may be in direct PvP or by playing with more powerful players, seeing them and thinking, I want to be that.
Yes. It's part of the problem, I think, in a lot of the PvP focused games. It's a part of the problem because all of the newer players are. And I watched this video in the words of just Strife Hayes himself, are the wolf, and the new players are the sheep. When you have all the wolves running around with no prey, they get bored and they go away. But on the other hand, if the wolves see the sheep, the new player, come in, they don't give the chance. They don't give the wolf a chance they don't get the new player a chance to become a wolf. No. They basically bully the sheep out of existence because it's a respawning sheep, right? So they can repeatedly kill it over and over and over and over and over again. Because they were killed just as much. They were hardcore into this game. They were killed over and over and over, but they persevered. And they entered the wolf phase eventually. After persevering, after dying, after losing their items, after doing everything over and over and over, they entered the wolf shape. But it's just impossible to expect every single person who enters a PvP focused game as a sheep it's impossible to expect that person called sheep, quote unquote, to actually persevere through all of the destruction and death that the wolf will inflict onto them until they gain the status of a wolf too. It's impossible. So that's why a lot of people exit PvP focused games. It's just how it is. Don't PvP focused games, MMOs don't really last a lot of time because I think MMOs should encourage teamwork instead of playing against each other. And PvP should be an additional thing, like an arena or something like this.
If power creep is designed to encourage that competitive mentality by making power so easy to measure, what does horizontal progression do? Well, if it's PvP, it often focuses on the balancing of the experience,
Yep.
balancing the playing field. Now, regardless of the sponsorship, I would have still used Guild Wars 2 for this example. Having the missed PvP arena, which levels everyone to max, gives everyone equal equipment, and lets you compete in a fair fight.
Yes, yes. PvP in a horizontal game usually equates to having matches of skill rather than match of just I have the biggest stick around, so I'm going to beat you to death with the biggest stick, and you can't do anything about it. Guild Wars 2, Final Fantasy 14, they both level you up to maximum. They both give you every unlocked skill possible for PvE. In case of Final Fantasy 14, it's special amount of skills for each class that you get, but you still get to maximum level. You have like 500,000 levels HP or something. Maximum damage, maximum gear, everything is maximum. In Guild Wars 2, as you can see, he obviously uses that example, so it does the same thing, and that's good.
But there are issues with this too. You're directly removing one of the core aspects of the RPG, the progress. And now you're competing on the PvP scene against larger, more established games who specialize entirely in PvP. Ultimately, both of these approaches, adding increasing power or
Yeah.
adding increasing features, serve to deepen the divide between the player base from the start and finish of the game. And this often ends up needing a stat squish or feature reset to fix, which leads to point 5. When the game simply becomes too vertical or too horizontal, and the gap between players too great, the game has to be brought back to a manageable size for the player base to actually play together.
Nerfs are coming! Nerfs are coming!
And resets can be complex in different ways. A power-based stat squish mostly just involves reducing the numbers, which never feels good because players feel like you're taking earned power away from them, but can sometimes be justified for the longevity of the game. And
Yeah, yeah. Nerfs are equally important as buffs ultimately. Though they can be a real bummer for people who like play specific combinations, and they will always complain about it.
while I'm not a fan of the process of removing anything, I can understand the long-term goal they're going for. Like
Yeah.
how Neverwinter briefly had damage numbers in the tens of
Yes.
millions and had to reduce
It has
all
a few
numbers
minutes
by
left.
a factor of several hundred before we ended up hitting trillions. A vertical power-based game has an unusual relationship with stat squishes. They will be needed more frequently, but because they're just reducing the numbers behind the scenes, they're actually very easy to do.
That's true.
Horizontal progress games, however, have a much harder time resetting to a manageable size.
Yeah, because they always have to they always have to include a different version. They always have to cut a specific thing out of the game, and that is going to be much more noticeable than it is going to be when it comes to like that when it comes to like numbers. You can just squish them. Like it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna cut this 1 0 here. So it's into this 500,000. It's 5,000, 50,000. Nobody really notices overall, unless you pay attention to the numbers. Obviously, people go in to complain. Those people who like live by the numbers, but most people won't.
Because the game grows not in numbers, but in features. And a stat squish would be more of a feature squish, removing excess mechanics or talents or skills. And this can involve changing the fundamental way in which certain playstyles will work.
Yes.
Neverwinter is again a good example. When Life Steal, a stat which restored your own health, by a portion of the damage you do was removed, an entire style of tanking was removed from the game with it. And
Yeah.
squishy players who relied on aggressive gameplay to survive were now useless. They were just squishy and dead. The feature switch
Yeah.
and the removal of lifesteal actually made the game slower and the combat less intense, which
Yeah.
was something Neverwinter had pushed away from for many, many years. Resetting vertical power creep feels bad, but is relatively simple. Resetting horizontal feature creep is much more challenging because features are tied to the moment-to-moment gameplay.
Yeah.
But let's imagine a major reset does happen and you decide to take a break from the game, because no one likes to lose high numbers or skills they've come to enjoy. This brings up point 6. Taking a break and returning feels very different for both types of design. We've all
Ultimately, I think taking a break from World of Warcraft is the example vertical game is very challenging because I heard people talk about how they play World of Warcraft over the long periods of time. It feels like a job. You have to maintain, you have to grind out, you have to maintain the level of activity, you have to go dailies, you have to do weeklies, you have to do whatever the hell. And you have to do it. You have to try to spend a certain amount of time on the game if you want to be in any way, shape, or form viable and competitive. You have to come back. You have to do it. You have to do it for a certain amount of stuff. It's just a thing that needs to be done. You have to do it. In Final Fantasy XIV, even like the devs themselves talked about it. We want you to drop the game whenever you want, go play other games, whatever go do whatever the hell, right? And then you return the game to the game, pick it back up, and nothing has changed. You can still play it as you played it before. You don't really need to rush anywhere. So that's their mentality.
had that horrible feeling of returning to an RPG after a long time thinking, what the hell was I even doing? I once returned to Chrono Trigger after a few months away, and after staring at the screen for a minute, I decided to just restart the whole game. Returning to an MMO is a daunting task, and the vertical-horizontal divide heavily changes that experience.
Yeah.
Returning to a vertical game feels like starting again anyway. Your items and equipment are often useless and outclassed, and the content you knew is not being run anymore.
Yes.
The player base have all moved on to the latest area. So
Yep.
you're left fighting back up the ladder, doing content no one else is doing because it's just a step you need, but they are past it.
Yep.
Vertical games are often called treadmill games. If you stop running, you fall off, and then
Yeah.
you need to catch up. Your friends and guild will shoot off ahead. But there is one good side to this, a silver lining to this cloud. You've got a pretty good idea of what you need to be aiming for. You
Yeah.
just head to whatever the highest number is or the newest expansion is.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
beauty of having an objectively best choice is you can just make that choice.
Yeah,
Returning
yeah.
to a horizontal game, however, is a bit different. Your equipment often retains its power, and your rare items retain their value because they've not been outclassed.
Yes.
They're now just a variation on something else. So the player base is still doing what you already know. They're just doing it in different ways. There are new systems you need to learn, or old skills revamped to work in new ways.
True.
I get this feeling whenever I return to old school RuneScape. My skills haven't gone anywhere. My equipment is still useful. There's just new stuff to do in various directions.
Yeah,
Returning to
yeah.
a horizontal progression game often feels easier because you feel that you've still got what you left. But now it's also harder to pick a direction because there's no objectively correct or best thing. It's often a case of, what do you want to do?
Uh-huh.
And more often than not, you'll end up thinking, well, I don't know. What's worth doing? And all of this ultimately leads on to the final point. Vertical progression is focused on the satisfaction of the reward over the process. It values becoming powerful in a way others can see and then respect.
I think it's kind of weird to ask what's worth doing in a game like this because in a vertical game, a horizontal game. Sorry, in a horizontal game because everything is worth doing. You want to raid, a raid. You want to do trials, do trials. You want to do crafting shenanigans, do that. You don't want to do anywhere. You don't want to do any of this. You just want to chill in the tavern and talk with a cat girl, for example. You do that. I don't really understand what's quote unquote vertical games. As I already said, what's worth doing in vertical games is very known. You need to there is this spear that is over bajillion damage, and you need for this class, right? And the new expansion, and you have the new expansions raids, which reward the spear of 100 doom power, whatever. You go to the new expansion, and you grab the spear. Josh already said there is an objectively best choices in gear, objectively best choices in weapons, objectively best choices in content you need to do. You just need to catch up. It's hard to catch up though, because nobody does the content you are supposed to be doing to catch up in vertical games. So people often are afraid to take breaks in vertical games, because in vertical games, when you take breaks, you fall off, you fall behind, and you need to catch up. And this is a daunting process. In horizontal games, you don't need to do this process of catching up, but you may be a bit lost in what direction to go. But that's on you. MMOs exist for you to decide what you want to do, what you want to focus. You want to do everything, do everything. Nobody is forcing you to focus. Or if you want to do story, do story. If you want to do crafting, do crafting. Right? Often a lot of the goal driven people, they're just like, well, what's worth doing, what's gonna give me the biggest boost, and people just shrug. That's why a lot of hardcore, I think, hardcore WoW raiders, when they went into Final Fantasy 14, they didn't really get what this is all about, what the hype is, because they want to get the biggest numbers, they want to get have the biggest stick around, but every stick is viable. Every stick at the end game is viable. There is no bigger stick. There is one stick that does 3 more damage, and there is one stick that does a certain amount of stunt stuff. Those post sticks are completely viable in any situation. It doesn't really matter. They just look different and are obtained different ways. Like I already said, there is like this flaming sword, right? You get by completing a specific trial in a specific location that you want to do, right? And it's very hard. Once you complete this specific trial in a location, you return to your friends and go grab this flaming sword and are like, look at this. This flaming sword isn't anything special. It doesn't do much more damage than their swords. It doesn't insta kill monsters. It does not give you advantage, but it gives you a prestige. Vertical games are about numbers. Horizontal games are about prestige. You get by experiencing some things and earning some things from that experience. Which is why both of those types of games usually have a completely different philosophy and ways they approach building those encounters, building those experiences. Even like glamour system, I already mentioned it before. Glamour system, right? There exists a glamour system in Final Fantasy 14. It's all about. It doesn't concern items at all. There is nothing in it about items, like absolutely nothing. It doesn't increase numbers. It doesn't give you more damage. Doesn't give you more protection. 5 seconds. What is this? Mr. Power. Okay. Sorry. Don't post links, please. Please don't post links. I have Nightbot. If you want to post links and give me a video, Discord. Here, I have a special channel for it. But yeah, ultimately, you get cool items. You get cool items from one. You get cool items from the other. So yeah. But cool items from vertical are numbers. Cool items from horizontal are looks, experience, and prestige. That's basically, if you boil down my ramble to it, that's how it is.
It often leads to objectively correct choices in gameplay loops and character builds, whereas horizontal progression is more about enjoying the process than the reward itself.
Yes.
And becoming powerful in a way that's personally relevant to you,
Yes.
but not necessarily more socially powerful than anyone else. Vertical games encourage the players to play by adding new things for the players to chase, the allure of power and the dominance over other players and over the game itself.
Yeah. Effectively, it's like a god coming down and like saying, "You guys, this sword is the best sword. You go grab the sword. Everyone grabs the sword because it's the best sword." And everyone chases the sword, and everyone will do all the trials related to the sword, but they will abandon the old sword because the old sword is no longer relevant compared to the new sword. The new player, the horizontal players will often chase whatever they want to chase. Sometimes they won't even chase a sword, they will chase a fancy new pan they can use to cook.
In a vertical game, power is the driving force. The journey is simply a step on the route to power.
Yep.
Horizontal design adds content for the players to experience, and the value of the experience itself is the valuable thing,
Yeah.
even if you have nothing to show for the experience beyond memories and enjoyment.
Sometimes I already mentioned. Sometimes developers actually pull into that sort of mentality, and they actually do give you rewards to show for it. They give you cosmetics, they give you mounts, they give you items that are not in any way, shape, or form stronger than other items of the same tier, but they are specific and unique to the experience you had just went through.
The satisfaction of gaining power is replaced with the personal satisfaction of overcoming a gaming challenge.
It's a journey. It's a journey versus result. Ultimately, that's what it boils out to. He already said that, but it's a journey versus the result.
Here's an interesting example. In Guild Wars 1, you can actually use the bonus input to just get given some of the best weapons in the game from the very start. You can use them immediately. So you'd be thinking, why am I playing the game? There's very little I can get that's better than what's been given to me.
Yeah.
While I was playing, I realized that's not the point of Guild Wars 1.
Yes.
The numbers are incredibly low and the items are relatively easy to get. You play for the enjoyment of the process of playing, not necessarily the gaining of power. So when you log into any MMO, ask yourself, why are you playing? Do you enjoy the process itself, or is the process simply a means to an end? Do you want to be objectively better and more powerful than others, or do you want to be as powerful in a different way? Do you want to be part of the race, constantly pushing forward into the more powerful, more difficult content, or are you content to go and do the older stuff because it still has meaning to you and isn't yet outdated?
That is a good question. Ultimately, it depends on why you play MMORPGs, right? People will always be. It's always going to depend on why you play MMORPGs. Like this is just how it is. If you play for power, obviously you're gonna get into games that are all about power. Like you wanna be the big shining armor, the big shining knight with the big shining armor, like that has the biggest stats ever. You wanna watch the big numbers go brr. And there's the more plainly said, role play focused people, right? The numbers are not exactly what they are up again after. They are after the experience. They are after the character development. They are after imagining their own character in the various scenarios that are leading up to the situation. They want to be again. I'm returning for Final Fantasy 14 because this is the biggest example I know that is on my mind. But you want to be the warrior of light, right? You want to be your unique warrior of light. You want to be the brooding dark knight, or to be the incredibly inventive mechanist, or the loyal gladiator slash paladin, or the patient samurai that is yearning for balance. Or maybe you want to be a white mage and you want to be experienced. You want to have experience related to that. Maybe you don't want to be any of those. Maybe you just want to stop whatever you're doing, get the progression, and just go play. I don't know. Just go play a carpenter, right? That's just how it is. That's the crux of your existence in MMO. You want to exist in a community that is all about this progression, right? Okay, what is? Yeah, that's ultimately how it is. Uh, Try to think of a way you play games in general. Your mentality when playing the games. your philosophy when approaching different challenges,
I
your philosophy when approaching the side content that nobody else does. For example, I have a mentality that I will always go through side content. That's how it is. If I see all the yellow check marks, I have the urge, I have a strong urge to go and experience those because I want to have the fullest mindset. I want to do the biggest. I want to do most of the biggest things on the card on the map. I want to experience those things. I want to go through or through these side stories. I want to understand how the world works. I want to get like these tokens of appreciation. I want to collect mounts. I want to do all these kinds of things that don't particularly have any real impact on how strong I am. I don't really want that. That's not how it is. That's not how it works for me. Some other person I know a person. I don't think they're wrong in how they're playing the game, but they want to do the thing. They want to do the thing they came here for. They want to be the strongest. They want to get through the main quest as fast as possible, and they want to understand the story and focus on the story. For example, that's in RPGs, right? Or they want to have the strongest items in the game, and they want to do this the hardest content in the game, and they just skip all of the unnecessary meat that is just there for people who want to play the game extensively in a horizontal way, in a spreading out way. They want to just go straight up. They have a goal. They don't have a lot of time to play the game. They can only spare like a few hours every day, so they can just go and do what they like to do every for all those hours. But yeah, ultimately, I think both philosophies are correct in some ways, and not correct in the other. So, from what I understand as a person, I think a balance of the two is necessary for an MMO to be correct, to be amazing. A balance is needed because vertical progression is always appealing to the sense of community, is always appealing to a sense of competitiveness, and horizontal progression is always appealing to the sense of community.
you a vertical progress player or a horizontal experience player? Let me know in the comments below. Another massive thank you to Guild Wars 2 for sponsoring this video. Use the link in the description to let them know that I sent you. If you enjoy your time in Tyria, feel free to join our Discord server. We're often doing jumping puzzles or world bosses. Cheers for your time, and as always, have a great day.
Okay. Sorry that took a while. That took a while. I like to ramble about stuff like this.